Hi, this is Subramaniam Shankaran. Okay, good to meet you for the next video with respect to CISSP Made Simple series. Okay, CSP is a very simple certification. Okay, all you have to do is to understand, read slowly, understand the subject, and that's it. Okay, there are a lot of people who clear the certification, right? Why should we always look at the people who have failed in the certification? Okay. Now, today we are going to have a look at few more important terms with respect to the fundamentals of information security, and okay, we'll also get down to the legalities, okay, the laws for the CSSP. Now, there is a term called default to deny. Okay, unless otherwise, the access is explicitly given to a data subject. Okay, or for, let's say, for the transaction. Why I'm saying for the transaction, because if you're going to have a firewall, the firewall starts with any deny. Okay, any source IP, any source port, or any destination IP destination port, you will deny. Okay, the traffic. Okay, then you will add on the rules on top of it. This is actually called as an this any deny rule is called as an implicit deny rule. Okay, it is in line with the default deny. Okay, unless otherwise the transaction is explicitly allowed by any of the rules. Okay, implicitly it's denied. The other one is called defense in depth. Okay, otherwise known as layered security. Layered security is multiple layers of security is always implemented within the organization to ensure that if one layer is circumvented, the other layer is going to put a stop to the hacker. Okay, we have two firewalls. We have antiviruses. Okay, one type of antivirus for the client, or workstation, laptop, desktop, etc. The other company, okay, is going to be for the server. Okay, in case the antivirus running on the workstations, okay, is not able to identify the malware and clean it, the one running on the server will actually do it for you. Okay, so there is always a compensating control. Okay, compensating control is not with respect to the risk acceptance. There's always another control. Okay, you need to have. Okay, this is actually called as a defense in depth. I'm speaking only about the two layers, but there could be multiple layers. Okay, so the security at the gate and security at your doorstep, security in your floor. Okay, your access card reader. Then you come put in your username and the password. Okay, then access. Okay, the data that you want to do. So there are multiple layers of security, mix of security, physical security, technical security. Okay, this is all governed by the administrative controls. Okay, is available for you. So default to deny is to ensure that by default none of the data subject or none of the transaction gets through. And defense in depth is otherwise known as a layered security. Okay, layered security is such a beautiful concept. Okay, you cannot just implement a control and say that this will actually work. In the personal front, it might. Okay, you might have an antivirus on your laptop. That's actually fine. But when you go to the enterprise, okay, you need to plan for defense in depth. Okay, and there are two more terms called need to know and principles of least privileges. Okay, this is best explained with respect to the SDLC. There are three players in SDLC. One is the developer, the other one is the tester, the other one is the user. The developer will have read, write, and execute access to the development system, and the tester will have only the execute access to the test system, and the users will have only the execute access to the binaries on the production system. They might have update or write access to the data on the production system. Now, the developer need not know even the IP address of the test system and the production system. And practically, they know it. But when I say need not know, they will not have access to test system or the production system. Similarly, the testers will not have access to development system and the production system. And the users will not have access to test system and the development system, because they're not going to do anything with the development activity. No, not at all. Okay, so they need not even know the IP address of the development test system. That holds good. Most of the users who access they don't access anything else. Okay, so in a sense, like, they don't even know the IP address of the development system and the test system. So least privileges basically means that, okay, the testers, okay, will not have read or write access to the source code. Okay, they may do a source code review, but for that they need not have a write access. Okay, read and write access, okay, is something. Write access is not available, okay, for the testers. Okay, so according to their job role, they need to execute the binary or executable for the testing purpose. So execute access is actually provided. In case they want to do a secure code review, okay, the designated personnel will have the read access to the source code. And if you look at the users, okay, so they will have an execute access. And if you look at the developer, the developer will have read, write, and execute access to the development environment. So, according to the principles of least privileges, okay, the users will have only the execute access to the binary. They will not even have an access to the source code. They need not even have it, okay, unless it's an open source or in a copy left. Okay, copy left. They need not actually have it. Okay. Now, the testers also fall into the same category. They need not have access to production and the development system, and they will actually have execute access, only the execute access to the binary or executable. So least privileges is actually followed. Now, let's get on to the legalities, okay, with respect to the CISSP. Okay, there are 5 different laws that we are actually going to discuss for the CISSP. Common law. Common law, the name comes from the Commonwealth nation, okay, where all the British, which are the countries that were under the British, okay, the British colony, okay, they all follow the common law. Criminal law, civil law, tort law comes under the civil law, international law, and the administrative law, okay, which we are going to have a look at. Civil law is a legal system, okay. When the civil law is actually, it's originated from the Roman times, Roman law, blah, 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 etc. Okay, in civil law, okay, it is all based on the codified law, okay. Statutes, okay, the statutes are something which the civil law, okay, the countries following the civil law, China, Japan, etc., okay, they all follow. That means the precedence of the similar cases is not considered, okay, for a current case. But in case of a common law, okay, the precedence of the previous case, okay, is considered. That means the judgment of the previous case, okay, similar case is considered for the current case. Okay, in fact, my father is actually a chartered engineer. Okay, he goes to he appears in the court for civil engineering cases. So, in fact, I had seen personally a lot of advocates coming home discussing things with him, and they referred a lot of material. Okay, the Supreme Court judgment, High Court judgment, etc. Okay, in the court of law in India, you can still say that according to the Supreme Court judgment or High Court, you can refer to that particular case and say, and the judgment in this particular case is so and so, so which can be considered for the current case also. Okay, on the common law, this is actually applicable. When the civil law as a legal system, it is not applicable. Okay, so there is a difference between the common law and the civil law as a legal system. Civil law as a legal system is different from the civil law. Okay, we'll actually discuss that. So common law refers to the legal system based on the judicial precedents and customs rather than codified statutes. And precedents, common law relies heavily on the judicial decision of the past cases to guide the outcome of the similar cases in the future. Okay, that's what we have discussed. Now, categories of the law. Under the common law also, you have got criminal law, civil law, administrative law. Administrative law, so otherwise called as a regulatory law, GDPR. Okay, UK GDPR. Okay, UK GDPR is an administrative law that comes under the common law as a legal system. Okay, because UK, I'm speaking of the British colonies. Obviously, UK, okay, will come under the common law. Okay, so civil law, criminal law, we'll discuss about all that. Okay, the regulatory law, GDPR, UK GDPR is actually regulatory law or administrative law. In US, I'm sorry, in US we have got the HIPAA. Okay, so understanding common law is very important for CISSP because the regulatory compliance, the GDPR is a regulatory compliance. Okay, and then HIPAA is a regulatory compliance. PDPL, Saudi Arabia, PDPA, Malaysia, DPDP, India, they're all regulatory compliances. Okay, they're all common laws. Okay, you need to understand the common law. Okay, burden of proof. This is the legal concept. Okay, there are 2 more terms that we are going to discuss with related to the burden of proof. Legal concept that refers to the responsibility of the party in the legal proceeding to provide sufficient evidence to support their claims. Okay, so burden of proof basically it's applicable for both civil law and the criminal law. Okay, in civil law, okay, the victim is actually individual. Okay, there's a compensation that has been paid. But in the criminal law, though the impacted party is an individual, but the victim is a society. Okay, the police want to secure the society from the criminal. Okay, if there is a murderer, okay, or the rapist, okay, so we are just taking a particular case and we are taking him for the punishment, okay, prosecution. But what we are trying to protect is the society. Okay, in the civil law, okay, it is not. It is between the individual. Civil law might not lead to an imprisonment unless otherwise it's in contempt of court. Okay, there is a decision given by the court to pay the penalty, and the accused is actually not paying it on time. Okay, that might lead to a criminal charges, but otherwise no. Okay, but in criminal law, okay, it could lead to an imprisonment, okay, or sentencing also. Okay, so burden of proof. Okay, what is there? Okay, beyond a reasonable doubt is something which is used for the criminal cases. It requires the prosecution to present the evidence so convincing, so it eliminates any reasonable doubt about the defendant's guilt. Okay, that means it's proven in the criminal case. Okay, this is of a more value because if the human life is subjected to a sentencing, okay, that will be a very serious offense if we later point of time prove that okay, he is not an accused, he is not a criminal. Okay, so beyond reasonable doubt, we need to actually prove it. In case of an civil, okay, preponderance of the evidence. Okay, preponderance of the evidence is the weightage. Okay, I'm giving the evidence. Okay, in such a way that okay, the evidence is collected to justify. Okay, is not of that particular value. Okay? It doesn't weigh that much. Okay, then we will go for the proceeding. So preponderance of the evidence is a standard proof used in primary in the civil cases. Requires the party presenting the claim must show that there's more likely than not the claim is true. Okay, so I'm going to produce the evidences in such a way that okay, the weightage is more. Okay, to prove somebody guilty or to prove somebody not guilty. Okay, whatever it is. Okay, so the preponderance of the evidences. Okay, and beyond reasonable doubt. Okay, they all come under the burden of proof. Okay, beyond reasonable doubt is always associated with the criminal case, and preponderance of evidence is always associated with the civil cases. Other law, customary law, it belongs to a region, okay, in which we are actually operating. Okay, when we say it belongs to a region, there could be the local customs. Okay, that is also considered. Okay, whenever there is a case, a lawsuit that has been filed, and similar religious law. Okay, the Sharia law is something which everybody is aware of. Every religion, Hinduism has got the Manu Dharma Shastra, okay, which is centuries and centuries, thousands and thousands of centuries old. Okay, and every religion has got their own law. Okay, so this religious law is also considered. There are countries which follow the religious law alone. Okay, but there are countries which doesn't follow that. Okay, like they have their own common law or civil law. Okay, to be followed. Administrative laws or the regulatory laws. HIPAA is an administrative law. GDPR, UK GDPR, EU GDPR, PDPL, PDPA, DPDPA, they are all administrative laws. Okay, administrative laws are otherwise called the regulatory laws. You need to follow it if you are an organization in that particular vertical. Okay, if you are a healthcare company, okay, and you are collecting the patient's record, then that means that you need to be a HIPAA compliant if you are in US. Disha is coming up in India, okay, for the healthcare industries. Okay, now every country has got their own laws. Okay, Dubai Health Authority, okay, the Dubai Health is actually called. They have got their own standards to follow. Okay, so every country has got their own laws to follow for the administration purposes. These are otherwise called as a regulatory complaints. Regulatory complaints is must. Okay, in fact, whenever you're doing an auditing, if there's a deviation against the regulatory complaints, okay, it is a major NC because the regulatory complaints will lead to a very, very high penalty, or it might sometimes lead to the license getting cancelled to operate out of that particular land. Okay, so adherence to the regulatory complaints is the priority one. Okay. And there are financial damages. Okay, whenever there is a deviation from what the law actually requires, okay, there's something called statutory. Statutory damages are prescribed by the law. Okay, punitive by the jury. The judge will say you need to pay him a compensation. Okay, and this compensation is this much. Compensatory is actual damage fee, including the advocate's fee. Okay, let's say somebody ran the car on another car. There's an accident. Okay, you need to pay for the damages for the, let's say, repair for the other car. Okay, that also comes under the compensatory. Okay, compensating. Okay, compensatory. Sometimes the compensatory will be clubbed with punitive or statutory. Okay, anyway, everything in statutory and punitive, you need to pay them a fee, right? So it all means the same. In the compensatory, in the compensatory, you need to actually pay for the advocate's fee also. Okay, in the punitive by the jury, and statutory is according to the law. Okay, the law will say that okay, if this is the problem, you need to pay this much as a penalty. And international law, okay, international law is it spans across multiple countries. Okay? Obviously, there'll be a complexity because not every country is same, right? What is followed by one country need not be followed by the other one. Okay, especially when there are hostile situation in the border. Okay, so if you look at the India, so you've got Pakistan on one side. Okay, then we have got Nepal, we have got Bhutan, we have got Bangladesh, we have got Burma. Okay, we have got China. Okay, we have got Russia. okay, and we have Sri Lanka, okay, we have Maldives, okay, surrounded by these countries, okay. It depends upon what sort of relationship a country maintains with the neighbors, okay. So that also brings in the complexity. Understanding, okay, understanding the law, okay. Now, what is unlawful in one country need not be unlawful in the other country. Okay, so it might also lead to an very embarrassing situation. Difference in the interpretation, extradition. Okay, if there is a accused on a different country, you cannot, if there is no extradition treaty between the both countries. Okay, you cannot send the guy, okay, in focus, the criminal, okay, the guy who has been charged with a crime, okay, to be sent to the other country. Especially we see, right, if the more than 40 to 45% of the hacking, okay, that happens in the world, okay, the statistics say it belongs to China, okay. For example, if the Americans pinpoint the guy, the hacker in China, the Chinese will never send the hackers to the US because they don't have this extradition treaty, okay, between US and China. Okay, difference in the rules of evidence. So in some country, okay, it's enough to produce the evidence. Okay, in some country, it might not be enough to produce the same evidence. Okay, so difference in rules of evidences, okay, is also a complex situation. Outdates the technology and the law. Okay, there are countries which are very far in technology. There are countries which are not very far in technology. Okay, this also brings in the complexity. Okay, in fact, I had been discussing about my AI courses and all the other courses with the companies from the different countries as well. But what I had actually seen is they are not. They come to me and say, "No, we are not so advanced in AI. Okay, so we don't have the capability or not the training on the artificial intelligence." But okay, things will change. Okay, they will pick it up, and it's a different world game altogether. So international law as such will bring in the complexity, difference in the interpretation. Okay, the extradition treaty is actually not signed. The criminals are not moved on to the other country for trial. Difference in the rules of evidence exists between one country and another country. Between the states within the same country also there is. Okay, if you look at the US, okay, 51 states, right? The rules in one of the states need not be the rule of the other state, especially the CCPA. Okay, so it's a Californian law. Okay, even if you're going to be physically on the other state, but if you're dealing with the personal data of the residents of the Californian state, okay, you still have to abide by the CCPA, but other states need not abide by the CCPA. Okay, so they might have their own laws. Okay, so there's a difference between the rules, difference between there are state level laws is also is available on certain countries. Okay. Obviously, next one is the outdated technology and the loss. Okay. Now, that's all for today's video, and stay connected for the next one. Okay. Let's complete the domain 1 ASAP and get onto the domain 3. Domain 2 is already done. Okay. There are a few gaps here and there, which I'll give you the video. So you stay subscribed for this channel for more videos on CDPO, CISSP, CISO. Okay. So good luck. My name is Subramaniam Shankar, my Stay subscribed and connected for more videos. Cheers and bye.